so for me, the process was, I remember the one time, there's a very good friend of mine, Morena Motupi. I was at a braai with a couple of friends, and we were sitting around, and there happened to be a match. I think it was a Kaizer Chiefs match. We were watching that, and they sort of switched the TV off and the volume off. And then for me, I don't know how it happened. It just instinctively I kicked into soccer commentary, and they were just recording me doing this soccer commentary, and I guess it was born there for me, the ability to be able to do commentary. And then I sort of thought to myself, let me explore this further. I volunteered to do club rugby games on stream. I did so many things. Mind you, this is unpaid. I did so many other things in and around commentary to be able to build, sort of that voice of being able to speak about something that is watched by thousands, hundreds. It was hundreds back then. It was just like a couple of hundred people, and being able to trust that it made sense to those 100 people. And then I got sort of chucked into the deep end. I got a call from SuperSport cricket producer Peter Matsele, who was like, "Hey, I've heard that you're interested in doing cricket commentary. I've got an availability. Makaya Ndini is sick. He can't do the Boxing Day Test match at SuperSport Park in Centurion, South Africa versus India. Are you available?" And this time I've already gone home. I'm sitting in Grahamstown with my mother. It's just outside of COVID times, 2021 December. He calls me. My mother's like, so I'm asking my mother, so what should I do? Because there's this phone call. And my mom's like, get into the car, go back up to Johannesburg and do it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Stumped, a podcast specifically created to help me waste the time of people who have better things to do than sit around and chat cricket. And today, I'm joined by Phila Sixaba. Phila, thank you for joining me.
It's not a waste of time. This is a great time spent. So thanks for the invite. And yeah, just looking forward to the chat, man.
You are one of the busiest people I know. I think if I always say I cover a lot of cricket, I think I watch a lot of cricket, but you are one of the people who definitely watches, if not more than me, on an equal level. How do you balance this?
Look, it's a tough thing. I think for me, I've always approached cricket as something fun to do, and then it sort of coincided with my job and it being sort of mandatory to be able to watch cricket and as much cricket as I possibly can. But I think for me, it's always been about just watching from an enjoyment point of view, from an entertainment point of view, and try and enjoy the game, try and find out as much as I possibly can. I think the more I've watched, the more I've learned about the game, the more I learn about the game, the more I watch. I don't ever think that you could ever perfect anything, but you can almost always try to be close to that. And for me, the thing has always been about just making sure that you watch as much as you can, and from as low as you possibly think low is. I think a lot of people think, you have to just watch international cricket to be able to understand cricket, but even under 9s and under 13s teach you more about cricket than the professionals do. So yeah, it's a tough balance, but I try and watch as much as I possibly can because I enjoy it, but also because it's sort of a job now, and keeping up to date with with cricket is something that I enjoy doing.
Because I didn't catch any of that because my internet was just nowhere.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, you speak about me trying to find a balance between being busy and watching as much cricket as I can. I think for me, it's always been about watching cricket from an enjoyment point of view, as an entertainment point of view, but also to educate myself, further about the game. And I try and watch as much as I can, and not only from um, a professional point of view, but also from the lowest as you possibly can think of cricket being low. And that for me, I find teaches me a lot about the game more than watching the professionals. From as little as under nines, under 13s, under 16, under 19 cricket. That for me teaches me a lot about the game. And I feel like those are the foundations and the principles about cricket. You learn from watching a lot more, and it sort of coincided with me being in cricket as a profession and working in cricket. So outside of it being an obligation to watch cricket, I still watch it from an enjoyment point of view, and that's why I still, I think how much cricket I watch, and I cover. It's a lot, and I think that's why I still do it, because I enjoy it and not because it's a job for me.
That's very interesting that you say that, because at one time I had an experience where I was called in to do commentary at an under 16 national week last year. And as I was watching these young girls bat, I found myself having to go back to the basics of batting, the stance, the high
Mm,
elbow. And I don't think it's something that we focus on when it's now at a higher level, professionals,
mm,
because we expect people to be there. And I kept thinking these are the principles, as you said, of cricket,
mm.
the very basics. And while we're on that, can you tell me the most entertaining match you watched at a lower level? And why was it memorable for you?
Funny, actually, because I watched one yesterday. It was a club game yesterday that I watched, between Pirates Cricket Club and Soweto Cricket Club, and Soweto, I admire quite a lot. I mean, it's one of those clubs in the South African club system and ecosystem of cricket that has so much legacy and tradition. There's so many cricketers professionally that have played for that club. So I watched it yesterday, and it was a Premier League A game between Pirates and Soweto, and just seeing so much young talent there. I mean, it completely flat wicket. It was what, 360 plays 280 or something like that, and it was really, really good cricket, entertaining. And for me, it was because I saw young cricketers playing at that level. Guys like Kamohelo Piri playing there. He's an SA under 19 player. Young players who are fearless and really taking on Premier League A cricket in the way that they did, and that for me was so entertaining. It's obviously a little bit biased of me because I'm a member of Pirates Cricket Club, and then but it was still so good. That game was as entertaining.
Speaking of club cricket, you
Yeah.
mentioned Mitch, which I really like, because the other day I had a chat with Neil Timmers, and he went on and on about the value that he got from batting with Mitch van Buren and then Connor Esterhuizen at old ads. And this is very important. How do you see it translating when you watch Soweto and Pirates play, and these young professionals are back playing with the rest of the local?
I think it's a great thing. Club cricket is still, for me, in this province, in Gauteng province, is very strong. I mean, on any given Sunday or Saturday, you're up against professionals or former professionals at various clubs. And I think it is so important to the ecosystem of not only Gauteng cricket, but also going up into the country. I mean,
so women's cricket, I think you have been one of the few people who has covered it extensively. How has your experience been in that space? Because it doesn't, to be frank, it deserves to be covered better, but we are not doing enough as broadcasters.
No, absolutely. I think for me, it goes back to that initial answer that I gave about learning. And for me, that's a space where I can learn more about the game. And I've seen women's cricket grow exponentially, not only globally, but specifically in South Africa. I mean, if you look now at South Africa's national women's side and how much talent is coming through there, but it starts domestically, and I'm so glad that now there's a professional setup in terms of domestic cricket in South Africa. The Pro Series has been amazing. I've covered a number of games now in the Pro Series, the Pro 50 and the Pro 20, where there's so much talent that is coming through. If you look at the Dolphins, just as one of the champions of the, I think, the Pro 20 series last year, some of the personnel that they have there, Nicole de Klerk can easily jump into that Proteas side. Somebody like an Alex Candler, for example, bowls really well, bats really well. So there's so much talent in women's cricket in the country now, and I think now we're in a really good position to be able to bear the fruits of that. There's been a lot of investment also, which is great. But I also think we're still behind. I think we're still about 10 years behind Australia, for example. A few years behind India, for example, and it was so great. And I think that's why that victory against India in this World Cup was so good to watch, because you look at how much resources they have compared to what we have domestically. It's a far cry. We can't even compete at that level in terms of the amount of money that they pump into women's cricket in India and in Australia and England. So that for me is one of the things that I'd like to see improvement on. But I thoroughly enjoyed the women's game. There's so much talent, like I said. It needs a lot more coverage. I would like to see the domestic stuff on mainstream television in the near future, because it's that good. The product is good enough to be able to be on mainstream television, and hopefully it's something that can happen sooner rather than later.
And you also cover a lot of under-19s, and one thing that's always gnawed at me was how good countries like Bangladesh and Afghanistan are at under-19 level. So much so that, recently our under-19s had a tough time against, was it Bangladesh? And you covered that. What do you think guys like Bangladesh lose when these guys are stepping up? Because these are the proper foundations, but then it gets lost as they go up. And what is it that we do better than them when these kids make the step up?
I think for me, it might be a problem of strength of the domestic game at a senior level for them. When you look at Bangladesh and all the other Asian nations, cricket is a national sport for them. They pump so much money into cricket. If you look, Bangladesh particularly pumps so much money into their government, pumps so much money into cricket, and I think for me, maybe it gets lost at senior domestic level, where probably the competition isn't as strong, so that it readies them for international cricket and dominance. they also play very young. I mean, if you look at the careers of Mushfiqur Rahim, Tamim Iqbal, you name them, they played as 16, 17-year-olds. Muhammad Mahmudullah, they all played as 16, 17, 18-year-olds, international cricket. But I think for me, it's the strength of the domestic game that we have a slight advantage over. But we can't compete with the amount of money that they pump into their cricket, especially from a junior national level. They pump so much money into it. When you look at their junior structures, so much talent, so much natural raw talent that is there. And look at how much development that they place on their youth structures. It's incredible. So I think for me, it might be a case of, and I don't know what the domestic game looks like in Bangladesh and in Afghanistan and all those places. But for me, it feels as if, they're a little bit behind in that setup, as opposed to how much money and resources they pump into a national point of view, a junior national, and going up to senior international cricket.
One thing that has been troubling me this month is you look at a kid like Riley Norton, talented. He's an all-rounder, does well at cricket and rugby. So naturally, he went where he felt was the best. But I then hear that Ruben Groenewald, who was at AFIS, is also signed a rugby contract. Now, for me, when I was speaking with a parent, they said, well, Ruben just didn't see a proper pathway for him in cricket. And I'm afraid that this might create a trend where youngsters see rugby as better. There's nothing wrong with that, but as someone who's invested in cricket, I want all the talent to stay in. What can be done when you look at that sort of thing to help retain the talented youngsters so that they give their all to cricket and maybe bolster the domestic scene and maybe make it all the way to the Proteas?
I think it's a simple answer: winning a World Cup. It's as simple as that. I mean, look at the popularity of rugby. The popularity of rugby is because they've won 4 World Cups in their history. 2 back to back, and that creates so much interest, so much popularity amongst the youngsters. You're like, I want to be a champion one day. Which is the best sort of avenue for me to be a champion one day? And I get why people, and especially youngsters who are dually talented, gravitate towards the rugby space because of how successful rugby has been and how popular rugby is because of the world championships that we've won. And South African cricket is almost on the brink of that. We've seen how close the Proteas have been, both men and women, to winning World Cups in the recent past. I mean, the women's side have competed in finals. The men's side competed in the final of the T20 World Cup last year. So it's about to happen. And I think once it happens, once we cross that barrier, once we break that barrier, you'd find that the interest of duly talented, youngsters will so slowly gravitate towards cricket. Cricket is an expensive sport also. I think when you look at it, and maybe a Riley Norton doesn't really, struggle in terms of the affordability of cricket, but when you look at it from a holistic point of view, how much access other youngsters who are less fortunate have to cricket, it's a tough thing. A cricket bat alone, one is 10,000 rand to be able to actually compete in a professional environment. And you're asking youngsters who come from backgrounds that aren't as fortunate to be able to fork out 10K for one cricket bat. I mean, that's somebody's, it's somebody's salary who's raising 2-3 kids on a 10K salary maybe. So it becomes a difficult. It becomes an easier choice for all those reasons. For youngsters to be able to gravitate to rugby more than cricket. One, it's a popular sport because of the rugby of the championships that they've won. Two, it's more affordable because you only need just a pair of boots from an equipment point of view, and then of course nutrition and all those other things come into it a little bit later on to be able to effectively compete in a professional environment, and that also costs money. But it's the cost when you compare it to cricket of slightly less. I'd love for Riley Norton to stay in a cricket environment, but I mean, he's in a pathway that is better for him in rugby, which is also fine. I think the strength of South African sport is as good as the youngsters that find interest in them, and I think that for me is still so good.
One thing that I did not investigate into, because I felt a lot of people were looking at it, writing about it, was the World Test Championship final, and the guys going on tour, going to show the mace everywhere in the country. When you look at it, when you look at all those tours, all those events, what impact do you see? As in, does the mace help to show people that we might not have a World Cup, but we definitely are contenders and we are winners too?
100%. I mean, the World Test Championship final was so huge. Yes, it might not be a World Cup, but the impact that it still has in terms of the interest and how the public views cricket now. We're champions, and that word alone holds so much weight in terms of people drawing interest into cricket. It's a start, and I think it's a great start. Being World Test champions is a great start, and then because it gives you a platform to be able to build onto World Cups. There's a T20 World Cup next year. There's a 50 over World Cup in 2027 at home. Winning it this year is, I think, for me, is a perfect silver lining. We can work towards now, since Cricket South Africa now can work towards, and I say we because it's not just the responsibility of Cricket South Africa. Everybody who has an invested interest in cricket in this country has a big role to play towards making sure that we build structures that make us champions, not just once, but serial champions. When you look at Australia, for an example, it's a great example of how to build champions. Their media is so good at making sure that they build players' profiles, make them believe that they're champions already before they even play for Australia. I was watching the recent 3-match ODI series where two young guys were batting together in a very precious situation in Cooper Connolly and Mitch Owen against one of the best teams in ODI cricket in India, and they felt so comfortable just chasing a total that could have been tricky on a surface that was tricky. But because they've been built up by the Australian public as champions, it's somebody that can go into an Australian cricket environment and become beaters and become champions. They already got there and they felt comfortable enough to be able to deliver on that stage. And I think for us, it needs to happen that way as well. World Test Championship is a great platform, and for us to be able to build on that going into the future. And cricket is a divisive sport in this country. It divides a lot of opinion, and that's great. For me, I always embrace that. Some opinions are obviously misaligned than others, but everybody's opinion for me, I always look at and I'm say, okay, this person actually has a vested interest in cricket in South Africa, and how can, with my knowledge, try and educate them to see it in a different way, but how do I take their perspective and try and see it from their point of view about what the situation is currently from a South African cricket point of view. So is a fantastic platform. Seeing so many youngsters on the streets, because I did the tour, in Kimberley, Bloemfontein, Durban, PE, Cape Town, seeing those youngsters just brushing up shoulders with the likes of Temba Bavuma, Marco Jansen, Aiden Markram, KG Rabada. Those were memories, I think, for me, last a long time, and builds a lot of interest from youngsters to be able to say, if a KG can come to my school and show me that he's won something for the country, why can't I? And I think that for me it left a lasting impression.
Gives me an easy way into my next question, because inspiration that these guys are giving the rest of the country, and your inspiration, from what I understand, where cricket is concerned, was Makaya. Into that, why he is so important, or why he was so important. He still is important, but why he was so important to you gravitating towards cricket, and his place. Because sometimes I feel that people forget a bit about him as an inspirational figure.
Easily the most recognizable cricketer in this country, and for me, that was the biggest thing. Growing up watching cricket, watching sport, I never saw anybody else in any other sport that looked like Makaya, looked like me, and obviously it goes back to representation. How are we as Black people represented in our sport teams? And, a lot of people obviously divides a lot of opinion that sort of narrative. But for me, Makaya was a beacon of hope for me, so many youngsters that were growing up in townships all over South Africa, dreaming of being something in life. And sport was the easiest hit on television. And I thought, it's an easy thing for me to be able to replicate, because I can see somebody that's already doing it. I've got a reference point of somebody doing it on the highest stage. As a person, having worked with him, calling him now a colleague, is just, it's surreal for me, because I never even thought about it in my life ever, that I would want to meet Makaya, but also work with him and call him a friend or colleague, and somebody that I can speak to on a regular basis, not even just about cricket, but just about life. And I think that for me was something that really drew plenty of inspiration. My family also loved him, still loves him to this day. My mother watched, cricket, very, very active and knowledgeable about the game. So, that was an incredible inspiration in terms of loving and falling in love with the game. It was solely because of Makaya.
And he didn't just make you love the game, he actually drew.
Oh man, I don't think I was talented enough to be able to make it professionally. That's the honest truth. Honestly, like I could play, but I mean, I was never gonna be somebody that can fit into the lifestyle of a professional sportsman. I was never talented enough. But it gave me, when as soon as I realized that, it gave me so much peace of mind that, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this, but how can I still be involved in this thing that I love? And that's why I chose to be a journalist. Initially, I never thought I was going to speak about the game. I never thought I was going to be a commentator. I never thought, I could just cover cricket and rugby and all these things that I do. I just wanted to write about it, be involved, write about the performances of these professionals, and try and live their life with words. And I think that was the inspiration after I thought, okay, maybe this being a professional cricketer thing is not going to happen.
One of the many questions, actually, the consistent question that I get, I told you this before we started, is they ask me, how do I get where you are? For me, it's a difficult one because I just leaned into what I love. And I also cannot run away from the fact that I have a solid foundation. And even when I was married, I could afford to continue chasing this thing because my wife was there and she would just allow me that space to keep trying. So I fail to explain all of that because I don't think it's something that in my shoes to be able to do it. But if someone asks you, Phila, how do they get to where you are?
I mean, you've hit the nail right on the head. It's a difficult question to answer because, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is uniquely tailored to them. But I think generally for me, it's always been about the willingness to be able to expose yourself to new things. If you want something so badly, you work towards it. And for me, it's always been the case. I can't tell you how many times I've had to work for free because I knew where I wanted to go and how to get there was maybe sacrificing getting paid to be able to give that person the impression that he actually wants to do this thing not only for the money. Yes, the money is great, but he wants to do it because it's his passion. He loves it, and he wants to make a significant contribution. That's always been my modus operandi. I think the second thing is be teachable. Learn as much as you can. It's hard sometimes because you might sometimes feel like you know everything, and that you can't be taught anything as simple as just talking to people, listening to people without you having to respond. And I think that for me has helped me a lot in my journey, just being open to just learning, being criticized. And it's a tough thing being criticized because you obviously feel insecure about it. You feel like people don't like you. They feel like you're going to feel like people hate you and you're not good enough to be able to do this thing. But it's an honest reflection of how they see you and how you have done professionally, and not because they hate you as a person. And I think that's a big distinction for me that has helped me. And also just being humble. It's hard thing to do because when you do certain things and you're in certain spaces and certain environments, you kind of forget that person that started, that worked for free, that did all of these things. You're still the same person. You're not a different person now that you're in an air-conditioned commentary box alongside Ian Bishop and whoever. You're still the same person. You're still at the same level. And for you to be able to continue to grow and be in other rooms and stay in those rooms, you still have to be the same person throughout that journey. And I think that for me is the few ingredients of being able to get to places where you think that you can, if you don't think that you can get there, then maybe you're not, supposed to be doing, this thing. And it goes across every industry, really, not even just media or commentary or whatever. It goes across every industry. If you don't believe that you're an accountant and you can solve money problems, then you can't be an accountant. You got to believe that you can do it. You got to trust that you can do it. And I've always been somebody that has a lot of belief in my ability to be able to do something.
A good friend of mine, Mpendulo, one of the rising voices in commentary. Mpendulo Magubane, I understand that what he did when he was trying to upskill himself into commentary, he would close himself in a room and do commentary. Just watch a match and do the best he can and record himself. And then he would listen back to check what he was saying. Was it making sense as he's watching the game? And it's a lot of effort. How did you develop your commentary skills? Did you do the same, or what was your process like as you were learning the craft?
It's a funny one because for me, firstly, I never thought, like I said, I never thought that I was going to ever be a commentator. That never was something that I thought about. It was never in my plan. Not that I couldn't do it. I just never thought that it was in my plan of doing it. So for me, the process was, I remember the one time, there's a very good friend of mine, Morena Motupi. I was at a braai with a couple of friends and we were sitting around and there happened to be a match. I think it was a Kaizer Chiefs match. We were watching that and they sort of switched the TV off and the volume off. And then for me, I don't know how it happened. It just instinctively I kicked into soccer commentary and they were just recording me doing this soccer commentary. And I guess it was born there for me, the ability to be able to do commentary. And then, I sort of thought to myself, let me explore this further. I volunteered to do club rugby games on stream. I did so many things. Mind you, this is unpaid. I did so many other things in and around commentary to be able to build, sort of that voice of being able to speak about something that is watched by thousands, hundreds. It was hundreds back then. It was just like a couple of hundred people, and being able to trust that it made sense to those 100 people. And then I got sort of chucked into the deep end. I got a call from SuperSport cricket producer Peter Matsele, who was like, "Hey, I've heard that you're interested in doing cricket commentary. I've got an availability. Makaya Ndini is sick. He can't do the Boxing Day test match at SuperSport Park in Centurion, South Africa versus India. Are you available?" And this time I've already gone home. I'm sitting in Grahamstown with my mother. It's just outside of COVID times, 2021 December. He calls me. My mother's like, so I'm asking my mother, so what should I do? Because there's this phone call. And my mom's like, get into the car, go back up to Johannesburg and do it. To tell you, I was driving on the N1, N6 from Makanda to Johannesburg on Christmas Day. Left Christmas Day in the morning to be able to be here in Johannesburg, to be able to do this. Everybody's happy at home. They're eating, they're drinking, they're feasting. I'm on the road like this, going home, go back to Johannesburg to try and do this opportunity. So for me, it was that. But the process was not straightforward for me. I did a lot of volunteering stuff. I never thought that I was good, actually. I never actually even thought that I was good enough to be able to, do commentary. But people believed that I could. So it gave me that confidence to say, oh, actually, this is something that I can do. And yeah, just like Mpendulo, I now, do something. I sit and I watch and I listen back just so I can find that 1% improvement the next time that I do it. It started out as something that I hated to do, but now I find the importance of it now because I know that it's an improvement more than me saying, oh man, you were horrible there, you sounded badly there, this didn't make sense, why did you say that? I was overly critical of how I sounded and who I was as a commentator at the start of it, as opposed to now where I watch back, I listen back from an analytical point of view instead of a critical point of view. I still criticize here and there, but I still say to myself, that little bit of extra percentage that I can work on to sound better, how can I do it? And this is the reason why I listen back to myself.
What was the reason why you didn't like to listen back initially? Because myself, I I've been doing interviews for years, and I never published those interviews because for some reason, I don't know why. I don't know when it started, but for some reason, I just didn't like the sound of my voice. I was like, you know what? This is not the kind of voice that should be out there because maybe just rationalizing now, maybe it's because I would hear certain voices and I associate those voices with broadcasting. But for you, what was it that made you not want to listen back until you decided, well, this is good for my growth. I have to listen.
I think same reason as you. Yeah, I compared my voice to other people's voices. Why don't I sound like him? Why don't I sound like him? Why didn't I say it like him? Why didn't I say it like her? And for a long time, it prevented me from watching back and listening back because I compared myself with other people. Um, and I think as soon as I do a lot of chatting to a lot of people, and especially like experienced people that have done this for a very long time. One of the people I speak to is Mlule Kintabu. And he said to me the one time, why do you want to sound like someone else when you have your own voice? You sound the way that you sound because it's your voice, it's not somebody else's voice. So forget about sounding a certain way. Just make sure that you own um, your ability, how you sound like, and move forward with that. And that gave me a lot of confidence to let go of that critical um, way of thinking about listening back to myself, and try and implement a more this is something that you want to do and
Mhm.
you want to improve on. So listen to improve and less listening to criticize. Yes, find where you want to, sort of be overly critical on yourself, but also don't be too harsh on yourself because it prevents you from going out there and enjoying what you want to do with confidence. So yeah, I mean, same reason as you. I mean, I try to sound a lot like everybody else because I had a certain way of uh, sort of looking at how presenting should be and how commentary should sound like. I'm not going to be a Michael Atherton. I'm not going to be an Hussein. I'm not going to be an Ian Bishop. I'm not going to be a Kaz Naidu. I'm not going to be a Natalie Ginnamanis. I'm going to be a me. And how I sound like has to be good enough for me, and it's going to be good enough for the people that are going to be listening. And that is how I try and get over it. It's a constant reminder, not just then I got over it. Then it's a constant reminder because it comes back, it circles back sometimes to say, maybe it's not, I'm not sounding too good. But then you have to remind yourself that you listen so that you can improve, and less listen to criticize yourself.
You are on the red carpet a lot, and a lot of these times you're meeting these accomplished people. It's something that I always it's I smile to myself after I do an interview with someone.
Yeah.
Even I will do an interview with, let's say, Bea Swanepoel.
Yeah.
He's not yet a Protea, but I will sit down and say yes, because I look at him and think, this guy is so talented. He does things that I cannot do. And I just did a chat with him. He gave me his time. So you are on the red carpet with the Proteas. This is levels higher than Bears, despite his talent. It's levels. How do you keep things together? When you're chatting to all these stars, because they are superstars, and you have to make sure you are on point. You don't put a foot wrong. Everything has to flow.
I think firstly, I try and see them as people before the superstardom. You meet a KG Rabada on the red carpet of the awards or pre-match interview, of an ODI game or T20 game. You have to remind yourself that he's just KG Rabada and not KG Rabada, the South African, all-time great fast bowler that has 330, 340 wickets. No, he's still somebody that you can speak to and have a natural conversation with. When you do that, you sort of lessen the pressure on yourself to say, "Oh shit, I'm talking to Kate Rabada," or I'm talking to Nadine de Klerk, or I'm talking to Marizan Kapp. Those are the things that for me, I try and remind myself that these people are just people, and they're not the superstars that we build them up to be. Yes, they are, but the first level is that they are still people, and that you can still have normal conversations without you being starstruck. So yeah, I think that's how I try and keep it together, but also prepare. I prepare questions in advance, so that I feel comfortable with what I'm asking, so that it doesn't appear to them as, it's yet another stupid question. They have to feel comfortable answering the question that you're going to have for them, because they know it's something that is positive and is geared towards their game and how they can improve and where they've gotten right or gone wrong, and less critical when you prepare questions. So those are the small little things that I try and do, to be able to just keep it together when I'm in those situations. And it might be different with different people, but for me, first and foremost, I try and remember that these superstars are still people.
What is the surely you have made a mistake. You must have at least one. What was the worst you made on the red carpet?
I've made so many mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, bro. Like, it's crazy how many mistakes that I've made. One that I can remember though, I forgot someone's name. I think I forgot Aiden Markram's name.
Wow.
Like, can you imagine? Like, that was huge. Like, I forgot Aiden Markram's name live on the red carpet. We're streaming to thousands of people on the CSA app. I forgot, clean blank, forgot Aiden Markram's name. So I was like, oh, yeah, thank you then. And it only hit me after we stopped recording that, man, I just forgot Aiden Markram's name. And but there are ways that there are ways though to sort of cover yourself up. when you've completely gone blank, and going completely blank is normal. You might forget what you want to say when you're supposed to say it. So you gotta find ways to not make the situation awkward. I felt like I didn't make it awkward towards Aiden, even though I forgot his name. But yeah, that is the biggest one and the most funniest one that I can remember.
You know, one of the things that people talk about, for me, it's a way of life. I research for a living. It's I should have been a historian,
Mm.
but people constantly say, well, you have to do your research. You have to do your research if you're doing commentary, if you are presenting. And I want to know, what does your research look like before a match? How, is it hours on hours of you just digging, or do you have sources whom you say, okay, this one will give me this and this one will give me this, and I'm good.
Uh, for me, it's less conventional because I rely a lot on. I mean, what I said before, I watch a lot of cricket. I rely a lot about on that. I'm not a big reader, um,
Mhm.
but I watch a lot. I notice a lot. I go to places where cricket is being played. So, for example, um, if I know I'm doing, a particular series against a particular nation, I obviously know the South Africans quite well. So for me, my research towards the South Africans won't be as extensive compared to maybe if we're playing Bangladesh, and they've got a couple of new guys that are coming up that are being included in the squad. My bulk of my research will be about Bangladesh and you know and how they have gone as a team. I'll try and watch a lot of Bangladesh state cricket on YouTube, and that's the nice thing now is that technology is so advanced that you can find cricket on the most like anywhere in the world. You can watch it because it's streamed, um, and and it's been shown everywhere. I try and go to those streams, watch back. I watch a lot of cricket on YouTube. Um, I'll go and watch a domestic game in Bangladesh in Chattogram, for example, on YouTube,
Mhm.
and just try and find who's doing well, what's the story around this person, and then I try and sort of read what the local newspapers are saying and the local media are saying about the composition of the squad. Um, so that I can get a general perspective about what the public is back home about these people and how they want to go about things and what is this and where this player come from, why is he in the squad, um, and all of that. And that for me helps me quite a bit. And we're fortunate sometimes at Supersport because we have statisticians who give us numbers and things, and I'm not a numbers guy, so I don't really rely a lot on that. I rely a lot on watching, and that forms a lot of my opinion, being able to watch numbers. There was a one politician that once said that numbers, oh no, a famous soccer coach that said numbers are like a bikini. They don't really reveal everything. Um, and for me, that stuck to me. Yes, numbers can be helpful, but for me, I like to go and see for myself, watch, read, investigate, to have a well-rounded perspective on what is happening in terms of cricket, the landscape of cricket globally, and not just in the country. So those are my preparation techniques, which can be different to someone else who will sit and go through streams of numbers and reels and reels and reels of things, and sit and investigate numbers from 3 seasons ago. I'm not like that. And they write down. I don't write down a lot of things. I use a lot of my memory, which can be a good and a bad thing for me as well, because I kind of forget sometimes what I saw. Whereas if I had written it down, it would have come, more naturally. So I try also to write what I think is important and relevant, so that I don't forget it when I'm on air, or when I'm talking about a particular subject. Um, so yeah, I mean that is as far as my research goes.
It's strange that writing, just speaking of writing, I I write. I have lots of notebooks. You come into my house, there's a small table, there's a bunch of notebooks in there. Each time I talk to someone, I'm writing. I don't really refer to them a lot, but the process of writing just does something to my memory. It's as if I'm writing on my head, because then I remember, oh yes, that page I wrote this. The picture is clear for me. It's
Sure.
strange. I don't know how to explain it. But
No,
let's talk
it
about
makes it makes sense for
yes.
me, because I completely understand it. Like somebody who writes, because they've written it down, it's engraved in their brain and their memory, so that they don't forget about it when it's time to offload it. And
Mm,
it makes
mm. Let's go to all rounders. It's one of the few podcasts that covers everything, and it's you and Nono. How did that come about? What was the discussion? Like, did you guys just sit down and say, let's do a podcast, let's talk sport?
funny enough, I was recruited to do this. I've obviously had an idea of starting my own podcast, but man, for me it was such a daunting thing to be able to do on my own. I was like, I'm never going to do it on my own. It's a lot of work. You know this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of convincing of people to come and speak to you, finding the time, editing, doing all these things, to make it a complete package. So I was very reluctant to do my own one. And then, a guy by the name of Lunga, um, he's our producer, he's our camera operator. He does a lot of the technical stuff. Myself and Nono just sit there and we look uh, pretty in front of the camera. He's the man that does all the work, So, we had a good relationship with him, played a lot of five-a-side soccer with him. And he was like, hey, man, why don't we do this? Nono's already on board. I've already asked him. He's keen. But I need two people and not just one person doing this. Are you keen? So I was like, let me think about it. I thought about it for a year, and his patience grew a little bit thin with me. I was like, dude, if you're not gonna do it, then I'm gonna move on, try and find somebody else. But I want you and Nono to do this thing. So I mean, I eventually agreed, and we started shooting about 2.5 years ago now, and it has its challenges, but and the reason why we wanted to call it all rounders is exactly that. We wanted to not just focus on um our interest, which is mutual interest, which is cricket. um we wanted to have a holistic view of what the South African sporting landscape looked like, find individuals that represented that, and speak to them, and put them on a platform that didn't care about controversies, that just wanted to know the person behind the sports star. Um, and I think that's something that we've tried to achieve, with some consistency over the last 2.5 years. Um, Great people to work with. Nono Pongolo is as knowledgeable about other sporting codes as he is about his own one, which is cricket. Lunga as passionate about cricket, rugby, football, golf, motorsport, fighting sport, as he is about anything. So, those things sort of came together nicely. And we really enjoy doing it. Tough though, because we've got to find, sort of time in our busy schedules. Nono's very busy. Somebody that works a lot, invested in cricket, youth development. So it's difficult to try and find balance. Lunga as well, he's got other projects going, which is fantastic because he's such a hard worker. And he's gotten so many opportunities to do certain things because we've been able to do this consistently. So I think that is the birth of the All Rounders podcast. And we've tried to stay consistent, but it's something that's really close to my heart because of the kind of conversations, the level of conversations we've had with people, not just only about their sporting achievements, but what informed their choice of being in that sport, how they grew up, where they see themselves as human beings outside of just sports stars. And I think that for me has been the most amazing thing.
We will put a disclaimer at the start of this episode, but because we don't want to annoy people. But of all the episodes that you've done, what are your 3 most memorable ones? The disclaimer is to say, you know what, all of them are memorable. You love all of them, but I put you in a corner to give me 3.
3 is reasonable. I think I can do 3. We once did an episode with Mhlongo, the para athlete that did so well in the Paralympic Games a couple of years ago. I think last year or 2023, somewhere there. Mpumelelo Mhlongo. He was so great. I mean, we got to understand growing up with a disability from somebody that grew up with a disability. For us, it was obviously a foreign sort of thing for us because we don't know how it is to grow up with a disability. The kind of treatment that you get from community, from family, from so many people that see you as somebody that isn't somebody in this world. And he's had to defy so many things. And I think that for me was one standout episode that we did with Mhlongo. And then we did 2 episodes with footballers. Dane Clayt, retired footballer, and Lyle Lakay. Yeah, Lyle Lakay, who's still an active footballer. I mean, for me, it was more of a high performance story. Dane Clayt, arguably the most successful footballer in domestic football in South Africa. Hearing him and how he had to get to that and how he achieved that and how he had to navigate different sort of pressures in his high performance career, being at big clubs like Wits and Orlando Pirates and playing with champions and winning so many championships and so many trophies. That was incredible for me to listen to, and what it took. I think he relayed one story about team building with the time that he was at SuperSport United with Coach Gavin Hunt and how that built them as a team. They had a tough start to the season. They went on a team building exercise where they had to carry logs and fry eggs just using the sun and and them just like collectively saying to the coach, this is not what we want to do anymore. We're leaving, we're abandoning this thing, and we're going back to base. And, lo and behold, that was the whole objective of being a team, making decisions together, sticking by. And they came back and they won the Premier Soccer League title that season. And it goes to show, like, there's so many different things that build high performance environments. And so that was amazing for me. Those were the 3 episodes that really stuck to me.
You know, as a lover of stories, I will tell you that while you were telling me of that log story, I my mind drifted and started thinking of Ada Burrow and
Yeah,
his team building methods. It sort of intertwines for me. But on the cricket side, I didn't ask you this earlier. Your most memorable moments with cricketers. How about three?
sure. uh Those are tough, man. I think I once did an interview with KG Rabada, um, High Performance Center in Pretoria, before they left for Bangladesh, tour of Bangladesh last year, as part of the World Test Championship cycle. He was on the brink of 300 Test wickets then. I think it was on 298 or something, or 299. And he was going to definitely achieve that 300 mark away in Bangladesh. And we spoke and we chatted, and knowing KG, he's a different kind of personality. He warms up to people in his own different way. But that day, as tired as he was, because he was straight out of training, it was hot in Pretoria. Um, he gave me an hour of his time, and he was so open and honest, and you know, went down memory lane, some of these big milestones, his first wicket, his 100th wicket, his 200th wicket, his 250th. And we had just a nice general chat about, wicket taking and what it means for him to be able to represent South Africa at that stage. I think that was a big memorable moment for me in my career, my own career, being able to do that, and something that can have a visual representation for a very long time, to say, before his 300th, this was the chat with him, and these were his reflections. So that for me was something that stood out. ICC under 19 World Cup last year. From a commentary point of view, being in the same commentary lineup with Ian Bishop was something that I never thought that would happen. I mean, you sit and you idolize people. There's without a doubt one of my idols. I was obviously didn't have the fortune of watching him during his playing days. I mean, I was never born. I wasn't born yet. But just listening to him in the commentary booth, how he sort of goes about it, the amount of research that he does to paint pictures to an audience, that is just amazing for me. So to be able to be in the same room as him, let alone be a colleague to him for a few days, was just amazing. And what else? I think meeting Makhaya Ndini. That, yeah, that probably should have started with that. Well, I started with that. First highlight, and then KG, and then working with Ian Bishop.
Well, Makaya, you sort of forgot him because you took his spot when he couldn't fulfill it. So, but Ian Bish is one of those. He's an icon. What is the one lasting thing that you took away from working with him, being in the same lineup with him, you do this tournament. One thing you sit back and say, this was my biggest takeaway from the time I worked alongside Ian?
Attention to detail. Probably the one person who meticulously applies attention to detail. He watches every ball, all 100 overs. He'll watch. He'll sit and watch. Even if he's not on the commentary stand, he'll sit on the side. He'll watch he'll not only just watch the balls that are being bowled. He watches everything around it. What is the crowd doing? What are the fielders doing? What is the coaching staff looking at when they're paying attention to a particular phase of the game? And then the amount of research that he does for that level, for that kind of person to come down to this level, and still apply the same principles that he would to senior international cricket, to junior international cricket, just blows my mind. He knows every player, where they come from, who their mother is. He does so much research. He covers all his bases that he can tell a holistic story about a cricketer and not just about his ability on the field, and what got him there, and how he's gone through adversity, how he's gone through the system, and how he's done certain things in his life to be able to be primed for this opportunity to be at this World Cup. The sacrifices that parents have made for the youngster to be here. It just inspired me so much. It felt like I wasn't doing anything in my preparation, but that's and that left me so inspired by that man in how he goes about his work, the high level of professionalism that he operates with. Humble guy, very quiet, never says a lot of things, and not because he doesn't want you or doesn't like you. He's that kind of person. He just doesn't speak much. Sits in his corner, watches every ball intently, and prepares very well. So I think that those were the big takeaways from working with Ian Bishop.
In a perfect world, what do the next few years look like for you?
Oh. In a perfect world, I'm doing every senior World Cup. That is as perfect that it can be for me. It's a massive aspiration and dream of mine to do every World Cup, particularly the 2027 World Cup on home soil. That for me is something that I work towards to now. I work tirelessly towards that, being prepared. If the opportunity arises, I'm perfectly positioned to be able to deliver if and when that opportunity arises. So in a perfect world, I'm doing every World Cup, starting with the Men's World Cup next year in January and February.
That is a good one, particularly in 2027. I mean, nothing would beat doing it on home soil. It's just perfect. But Phila, with that, I have to unshackle you from this episode. But I'm really thankful that you sat down with me, because it's one thing, like, I was doing school cricket commentary last year, and I ran into people and they're like, hey, how do we get into this? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I just get called, because it's not that I don't want to tell people. It's just that sometimes I don't have the answers. And I feel that you really did gives in better insight to what I would be able to give to anyone.
It's an absolute pleasure, bro. Like I mean, I've got all the time in the world to be able to sit down and do these kind of things. I mean, the more people understand how and when and why we do these kind of things, the better. And I think that for me is so important. So yeah, thank you for the invite. I really enjoy your content. I've seen almost every episode that you've put out now, so it's amazing. So keep on doing it, keep on pushing it. Um, I'm a phone call away to sit and chat about anything. So yep.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I always wait for that last part, that I'm a phone call away, because each time I'm thinking, oh, there might be a tournament, I will need to do a preview. And so when you walk yourself into the danger zone, I'm very happy.
Anytime.